Hey, it's Chris, and in this video we're going to talk about the menstrual cycle. So I certainly won't claim to be an expert in this topic. I've never menstruated personally, but it is a really important thing for us coaches to know, because as male coaches, we're sometimes going to be coaching female athletes, and a lot of the time this just gets completely ignored, or if a female athlete brings it up, then we just kind of stand there staring like a deer in the headlights, not really knowing what to do. So in this video, we're going to have a brief overview of what it is, a bit of a man-to-man talk about what we as male coaches need to know as a quick overview so that we can adapt our programs, our training for the needs of our female athletes. Let's start with an overview of what it is then. So the menstrual cycle is one complete cycle of the ovaries releasing an egg and a period happening. So it starts at puberty. When girls reach puberty, they start menstruating, and they continue that through their whole life until the menopause. And at menopause, it ceases and periods, ovulation go away. There's also a couple of other reasons where it might stop, particularly in relating to sport. So, for example, a very low body weight might cause menstruation to stop, and this is particularly in sport where we have REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport, where athletes are not eating enough. Affects both male and female athletes, but one of the symptoms in female athletes is they may stop menstruating if their body weight is too low and they're not consuming enough food. The menstrual cycle is typically around 28 days, but there is quite a lot of variety from woman to woman, so that's not set. Sometimes it is set based on the method of birth control, so certain birth control pills will regulate it by releasing certain hormones at certain times, which is why if you've ever seen some of the birth control pills, they have like a specific day from 1 to 28 and you have to take the right pill on the right day. That's because it's regulating the menstrual cycle, but not all birth control methods do that. That's only some of the pills. There's multiple pills and some of them regulate it, some of them don't. So a woman could have a very different menstrual cycle, but it's typically around 28 days. Let's break down what that looks like then. So the cycle starts with the period. So when all of the bleeding is happening, that is the start of the menstrual cycle, the period, and that first half of it is what we call the follicular phase. So this leads up to ovulation. So as menstruating happens, and then before the next egg is released by the ovaries, then that's called the follicular phase, and then the second half of the menstrual cycle is called the luteal phase, and this is after ovulation. So the egg has been released, but it hasn't been, assuming that the woman doesn't get pregnant, it hasn't been released yet. So that second half is called the luteal phase. And throughout these, as we can see on this graph, there's a lot of estrogen, there's a lot of progesterone, and these peak at different points throughout the menstrual cycle. So the hormones go up and down. Now, interestingly, we often think of this as a woman thing, but actually as men, our hormones go up and down as well. Less easy to predict our cycle, so in many ways it's more difficult for us because we don't necessarily know what's going on, whereas women tend to have a good track of where they are in their menstrual cycle. Okay, so that's what it is and how the phases work, but what do we do about that as coaches? So if we're a running coach, triathlon coach, cycling coach, whatever, what adaptations do we need to make? Well, the first thing is we really want it to be athlete driven. So something I would encourage you to talk about with your female athletes. Ask them what adaptations they want, what adaptations they need. But there are a couple of kind of broad brush rules of what will match up with the kind of biology. So the follicular phase is great for things like strength work and intervals. So doing the really hard stuff that's tough on the body is best done in the follicular phase. In the luteal phase, when we want to transition to more easy workouts, there's a slight increase in the risk of injuries here, so we don't want to be doing as much of the hard strength and intervals. And the body also switches over from burning carbs to burning more fats. Now, obviously we burn both of those all of the time, but it does shift slightly away from carbs to fats, and that makes the luteal phase perfect for doing longer, easier workouts where we're going to reduce the chance of injury and really capitalize on that fat burning. Also in the luteal phase is where progesterone peaks, and this is why we want to avoid some of that strength work, because it makes the joints a bit more loose and therefore they're at slight risk of injury. That doesn't mean it can't be done, but it's best done in the follicular phase, whereas those longer workouts are best done in the luteal phase. So what does this mean for racing then? Can you organise your race schedule around this? Well, you absolutely can, and in general the best time to do a race is generally in the follicular phase, because that's generally when athletes are feeling that at their strongest, unless you're doing something like a really long ultra, in which case that might be better done in the luteal phase. But again, something to discuss with your athletes. It's difficult to control the cycle anyway and get the races to match up, so it might not just be possible. But if it is, something to discuss with your athletes and find out when they would find out best to do it. But again, broad brush, fast races do in the follicular, but if you're getting over to the kind of ultra territory, then maybe luteal phase is a good time to do those. So that is a quick overview of the menstrual cycle for male coaches who are coaching female athletes and want to know a little bit about what's going on, what adjustments they might need to make. Hopefully that was useful. If so, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're into endurance sport, if you're into coaching, if you're into psychology, hit that subscribe button, because that's what my channel is all about, and I would love to see you in another video.